The alien queen collapsed without warning. A human guard revealed the truth. Part 1. The grand hall of the palace stretched for almost a mile in every direction. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath it. Thousands of alien delegates filled the space, their chittering voices creating a sound like distant thunder. Today marked the 500th anniversary of the peace treaty between the Empire and the Galactic Coalition. Every species of importance had sent representatives. Danny Cole stood at the far edge of the ceremony, wearing the plain gray uniform of a human security contractor. He was 34 years old, with tired eyes and calloused hands. 6 other humans stood with him, all assigned to exterior duty where they could watch but not interfere. They had made their feelings clear. Humans were tolerated, not welcomed. Their presence was a formality required by coalition law, nothing more. Themselves were beautiful in a terrifying way. They stood 7 feet tall on average, with iridescent exoskeletons that shifted color with their moods. 4 arms extended from their thorax, each ending in delicate fingers capable of incredible precision. Their eyes were compound, seeing in spectrums humans could not imagine. They had ruled their sector of space for 12,000 years. To them, humanity was a child species barely worth noticing. Danny noticed everything anyway. That was his nature. He watched the way the royal guards positioned themselves around the central stage. He observed the subtle tension between different noble factions. He counted the exits and measured the distances between them. Old habits from his military days never truly faded. The crowd fell silent as Sovereign appeared. She was ancient beyond human comprehension, yet she moved with fluid grace. Her exoskeleton gleamed with deep purple and gold, colors reserved only for the royal bloodline. A crown of living crystal sat upon her head, pulsing with soft light. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the hall without any visible amplification. Danny did not understand her language, but he felt its power. The around him trembled with emotion. Some wept openly. To them, the sovereign was more than a ruler. She was a living goddess, eternal and unchanging. The speech continued for nearly an hour. Danny maintained his position, fighting boredom while staying alert. He had learned long ago that nothing ever happened until it suddenly did. The sovereign raised all 4 of her arms in a gesture of blessing. The crowd responded with a harmonic chant that shook the floor. Then, without any warning at all, she collapsed. For a moment, nobody moved. The sight was so impossible that every mind in the hall refused to process it. The eternal sovereign, the undying mother of the empire, had fallen like a broken puppet. Her body lay crumpled on the stage, her limbs twisted at unnatural angles. Then the screaming began. Royal guards rushed forward, forming a protective circle around their fallen ruler. Physicians in ceremonial robes pushed through the crowd, their instruments already scanning. Ambassador, a senior diplomat who had organized the ceremony, began shouting orders in rapid. The alien delegates scrambled for the exits, their various security teams creating a chaotic mess of bodies and weapons. Danny watched it all with growing unease. Something was wrong beyond the obvious. He studied the sovereign's fallen form from across the hall, using the enhanced optics built into his helmet visor. Her exoskeleton had changed color, shifting from royal purple to a sickly gray. A pattern of dark lines spread across her thorax like cracks in old pottery. He knew that pattern. During his training as a military medic, Danny had studied every species in coalition space. The program was intensive and thorough. Humans were expected to serve as medical support during emergencies precisely because they were expendable enough to risk. He had memorized biological data that most humans never learned existed. The pattern on the sovereign's thorax indicated pheromone depletion syndrome. It was a condition that should have been impossible in a healthy queen. Their attendants produced a constant supply of bonding pheromones that sustained the royal metabolism. Without those pheromones, a queen's cellular structure would slowly break down over months or years. Danny pushed forward through the crowd. A guard blocked his path immediately. The alien towered over him, mandibles clicking with aggression. Danny held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "I need to reach the sovereign," he said. "I know what is wrong with her." The guard did not understand English, but Ambassador heard him. The diplomat's compound eyes fixed on Danny with undisguised contempt. "Remove this creature," commanded. "Humans have no place here." "She has been poisoned," Danny said, speaking louder now. "Not with any substance. Someone has been starving her of the pheromone she needs to survive. I can smell it missing from the air around her." The words struck the like physical blows. Several of the physicians turned to stare at him. Ambassador's exoskeleton flushed deep red with fury. "How dare you speak of sacred matters?" hissed. "This information is known only to the inner court. You could not possibly understand our biology." "I am a medic," Danny replied calmly. "It was my job to understand." Commander, head of the Royal Guard, stepped forward. She was massive even by standards, her body covered in old battle scars. She studied Danny with cold calculation. "Detain him," she ordered. Guards moved to grab Danny's arms. He did not resist. He had said what needed to be said. Whether they listened was beyond his control. But then a weak voice cut through the chaos. The sovereign had raised one trembling hand. Her compound eyes, dimmed nearly to darkness, focused on Danny with desperate intensity. She spoke a single word in. Commander froze. The guards released Danny's arms. "She commands us to wait," said slowly. "She wants to hear the human speak." Danny stepped forward until he stood at the edge of the stage, looking up at the dying queen. The physicians had gathered around her, their instruments humming with futile scans. They knew something was wrong but could not identify the cause. Their monitors showed normal readings for everything they measured. "Your monitoring systems have been compromised," Danny said. "They are showing you false data. The pheromone levels around the sovereign are almost zero. Someone has been filtering them from the air for months, maybe years. The damage to her cellular structure is severe. Without immediate treatment, she will die." High Physician pushed through the crowd of medical staff. He was ancient, his exoskeleton faded to dull bronze with age. He had served the royal family for over 2 centuries. His voice dripped with contempt. "Impossible," declared. "I monitor the sovereign's health personally. No human could possibly detect what our instruments cannot." Danny looked at the old physician. He saw the anger in his posture, but he also saw something else, was not surprised by the information. He was angry that someone else knew it. "Then explain the pattern on her thorax," Danny said quietly. "Explain why she collapsed without warning. Explain why your instruments show nothing wrong while she lies dying before your eyes." Had no answer. The sovereign's hand moved again, reaching toward Danny. Her fingers touched his chest, leaving a faint smear of royal pigment on his gray uniform. She spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. Commander translated, her own voice shaking with emotion. "She says the human sees what others refuse to see. She commands us to listen to him." Danny nodded slowly. He did not know what would happen next. He only knew that someone had tried to murder an immortal queen, and the truth was hiding in plain sight. He intended to find it. The alien queen collapsed without warning. A human guard revealed the truth. Part 2. The royal medical chamber was a place of cold beauty. Walls of polished stone reflected soft blue light from floating crystals that drifted near the ceiling. The sovereign lay on a bed of woven silver threads, her body connected to dozens of monitoring devices. Each device hummed with activity, displaying readings that meant nothing because they were all lies. Danny stood in the corner of the chamber, surrounded by 4 armed guards who watched his every movement. Commander had not arrested him, but she had not freed him either. He existed in a strange middle ground, tolerated only because the dying queen had commanded it. Ambassador paced the room with barely contained fury. His exoskeleton shifted through shades of red and orange, broadcasting his emotions to everyone present. "This is absurd," declared for the 5th time. "We are taking medical advice from a primitive species that still fights wars over resources. The human should be in a detention cell, not standing in the sovereign's presence." High Physician nodded in agreement. "My instruments show nothing abnormal. The sovereign's condition must be natural deterioration. Even immortals eventually fade." Danny said nothing. He had learned that silence often revealed more than speech. He watched carefully, nodding the way the old physician avoided looking directly at the monitoring displays. Knew the readings were false. He had to know. The door to the chamber opened, and a new figure entered. General was a military commander of legendary reputation, covered in decorations from 100 campaigns. Unlike most, he showed no immediate hostility toward Danny. His compound eyes studied the human with something closer to curiosity. "I have heard interesting rumors," said. "A human guard claims our sovereign has been poisoned. Half the court wants him executed. The other half wants to know if he speaks truth. He speaks nonsense, snapped. Perhaps, turned to Danny. You claim the monitoring systems have been compromised. Can you prove this? Danny nodded slowly. I can, but I need to approach the Sovereign. Commander stepped forward, one hand resting on her weapon. Explain what you intend to do. I have a simple device, Danny said. A chemical sniffer used in human emergency medical kits. It can detect pheromone levels in the air. If the monitors are correct, my device will show the same readings. If they have been compromised, my device will show the truth. General made a gesture of approval. Let him try. And both protested, but outranked them in matters of security. Danny approached the Sovereign's bed under the watchful eyes of every guard in the room. He moved slowly, keeping his hands visible at all times. The chemical sniffer was a small handheld device, barely larger than a communication unit. Danny activated it and held it near the Sovereign's thorax. Numbers appeared on the small display screen. He showed the screen to Commander. The pheromone level should be approximately 800 units for a healthy queen, Danny explained. Your monitors show 792, which is within normal range. He paused, letting them process the information. My device shows 17 units, almost zero. Silence filled the chamber. Stared at the display, her exoskeleton shifting through colors that Danny did not recognize. General moved closer to examine the readings himself. This could be a human trick, said weakly. Their technology is primitive, it cannot be trusted. Then test it yourself, Danny replied. Use your own instruments but calibrate them manually instead of relying on the automated systems. You will find the same results. Stepped forward quickly. There is no need for such tests. The human device is clearly malfunctioning. I will not allow further disruption to the Sovereign's care. General turned to face the High Physician. Something dangerous flickered in his compound eyes. You seem very eager to dismiss evidence without examination, observed. Why is that, old friend? Exoskeleton paled slightly. I am simply protecting the Sovereign from unnecessary interference. Are you, gestured to one of his own soldiers, fetch a calibration kit. We will verify the human's claims properly. The next hour passed in tense silence. Technicians arrived and began the slow process of manually calibrating the monitoring equipment. Danny waited patiently, watching the reactions of everyone in the room, grew increasingly agitated, became very still, almost frozen in place. When the calibration was complete, the technicians ran new scans of the Sovereign's environment. The results appeared on screens throughout the chamber. Pheromone level, 23 units. The room erupted in chaos. Guards drew weapons, uncertain who to point them at. Backed toward the door, his diplomatic composure completely shattered. Tried to speak, but Commander silenced him with a gesture. Someone has been filtering the bonding pheromones from the air around our Sovereign, said coldly. Someone with access to the monitoring systems. Someone who could falsify readings for months without detection. General turned to Danny. You have proven your claim, human. Now tell us who is responsible. I cannot tell you that, Danny admitted. But I can tell you where to look. The pheromone filters would need to be physically installed somewhere in the ventilation system. Check the maintenance records. Someone authorized their installation. A young stepped forward from the back of the room. She wore the simple robes of a royal attendant, and her entire body trembled with fear. Her name was, and she had served the Queen for only 3 years. I know who authorized the filters, whispered. I installed them myself. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. Commander moved forward, her hand on her weapon. Explain yourself. Collapsed to her knees, her voice breaking with terror and shame. 6 months ago, I received orders to replace the ventilation filters in the Sovereign's private chambers. I was told it was a security upgrade, designed to protect her from airborne toxins. I did not know what the filters truly did. I swear on my life, I did not know. Who gave you these orders? Demanded. Looked up, tears streaming from her compound eyes. The orders came with a royal seal, a seal that has been invalid for 50 years, the seal of Prince. The name struck the room like a physical blow. Danny saw stagger backward, their exoskeletons flashing with shock and disbelief. Even General seemed shaken. That is impossible, breathed. Prince died in exile decades ago. He did not die, sobbed. He survived, and he has been planning this for 50 years. Danny looked at the dying queen, her body slowly failing as the poison continued its work. Somewhere out there, her own son was killing her, and the truth was only beginning to emerge. He wondered what other secrets the Empire was hiding. The alien queen collapsed without warning. A human guard revealed the truth. Part 3. The detention wing of the royal palace was surprisingly comfortable. Danny sat on a padded bench in a small cell, watching the energy barrier shimmer between him and the corridor beyond. Two guards stood outside, their weapons ready but not raised. They treated him with wary respect now, a significant change from the contempt he had experienced before. News of the poisoning had spread through the palace like wildfire. The public had learned that their immortal sovereign was dying. Panic gripped the capital city. Some blamed the humans, calling for immediate expulsion of all coalition personnel. Others whispered about conspiracy and betrayal from within. Nobody knew what to believe. Danny waited patiently. He had done what he could. The rest depended on others. A familiar face appeared in the corridor. Park was another human guard, a communications specialist who had worked alongside Danny for 3 years. She was small and quick, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The guards let her approach the cell barrier. "You look comfortable," said quietly. "I have been in worse places," Danny replied. "What is happening out there?" Glanced at the guards, then leaned closer to speak in a low voice. "General has launched a full investigation. They are tearing apart the ventilation systems looking for more filters. High Physician has been placed under house arrest." "He was part of it." "They think so. He has served the royal family for 200 years, but his loyalty might have been to Prince all along." Paused. "There is something else. I found something strange in the palace communication logs before they locked me out." Danny straightened slightly. "What kind of strange?" "Encrypted transmissions leaving the palace every 3 days for the past 6 months. The encryption is old, nearly obsolete by standards, but it matches protocols that were used by the royal household 50 years ago, before it was exiled." "Someone has been reporting to him," Danny said. Nodded. "I traced the signal as far as I could. It leads to a location outside the capital city, an abandoned temple in the mountains, supposedly destroyed during the civil unrest after exile." The energy barrier flickered, and Commander appeared behind. The head of the royal guard looked exhausted, her exoskeleton dull with stress. "Human," said, "you have proven useful. Perhaps you can be useful again." Danny stood slowly. "I am listening." "General believes Prince is alive and hiding somewhere on this planet. We need to find him before he can cause more damage. Your friend has discovered information that may help us locate him." "I heard," Danny said, "the abandoned temple." His compound eyes narrowed. "You have been sharing information through my detention facility." "Your guards are not very attentive," said with a slight smile. Made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been irritation. "The Sovereign has asked to speak with you again, human. She has limited time remaining and she wishes to use some of it on you. I cannot imagine why." The energy barrier deactivated. Danny stepped out of the cell and followed through the palace corridors. Walked beside him, her hand resting casually near the weapon on her belt. They passed dozens of guards and servants, all of whom stared at Danny with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. The Sovereign's private recovery chamber was smaller than the medical wing. Soft light filtered through crystal windows, casting rainbow patterns across the floor. The dying queen lay on a bed of woven silk, her body thinner than before, her exoskeleton cracked and faded. She was alone. Even her attendants had been removed. Danny approached the bed slowly, unsure of the proper protocol. "Come closer, human." Her voice was weak but clear. She spoke in accented but understandable English, a surprise that Danny had not expected. "You speak my language," he said. "I speak 47 languages. Yours is crude but expressive." The Sovereign's compound eyes studied him with fatting intensity. "Why did you help me?" Danny considered the question carefully. "I saw someone dying. I knew what was wrong. I could not look away and do nothing." "Many would have. Humans are not beloved in this empire. You risked your life for a species that despises your kind." "I was a medic," Danny said simply. "When someone is hurt, I help them. It does not matter who they are or what they think of me. That is just what humans do." The Sovereign made a sound that might have been a sigh. "My son believed humans were the key to our empire's future. He wanted to open our borders, share our technology, join the wider galaxy as partners rather than rulers. I rejected his ideas. I called them dangerous. I exiled him rather than listen. You were wrong. I was afraid. Her hand moved weakly, reaching toward Danny. He took it gently, feeling the fragile bones beneath her thinning exoskeleton. Fear makes fools of us all, even immortal fools. Prince is trying to kill you, Danny said. Whatever his original intentions were, he has become something else. I know 50 years of exile can twist any heart. The sovereign's grip tightened slightly. I want you to find him, not for punishment, not for justice. I want to speak with my son one last time before I die. Danny stared at her. You want to forgive him. I want to understand him. I want him to understand me. Perhaps it is too late for forgiveness. Perhaps it is too late for anything, but I must try. Her voice cracked with emotion. Will you bring him to me, human? Will you do this for a dying old woman who treated your kind with contempt? Danny thought about everything he had experienced since arriving on Prime. The dismissive glances, the casual insults, the constant reminder that humans were inferior and unwelcome. He thought about the guards who had arrested him for speaking truth, and the physicians who had ignored evidence because it came from a primitive species. He thought about all of it, and then he let it go. I will find your son, Danny said. I will bring him to you if I can. The sovereign released his hand. Thank you. General will provide whatever resources you need. Commander will assign soldiers to accompany you. Danny nodded and turned to leave. At the door he paused and looked back. Your Majesty, if I may ask one question. Speak. Do you believe your son can be saved? Not his life, but his soul. Do you believe there is still good in him? The sovereign was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I have to believe it. He is my child. A mother never stops hopping, even when all hope seems lost. Danny understood that feeling. He had seen it in human mothers across a dozen worlds. Some things were universal, regardless of species. Then I will give him the chance to prove you right, Danny said. The rest is up to him. He walked out of the chamber, ready to hunt a prince who had been dead for 50 years. The alien queen collapsed without warning. A human guard revealed the truth. Part 4. The abandoned temple sat high in the mountains, surrounded by frozen peaks that had not seen visitors in decades. Ancient stonework crumbled beneath layers of ice and snow. They had built this place thousands of years ago, when their empire was young and their faith was strong. Now it stood as a monument to forgotten beliefs and broken promises. Danny led a small team through the narrow mountain pass, walked beside him, her breath forming clouds in the frozen air. Behind them came 8 soldiers, handpicked by Commander for their loyalty and combat skills. General had wanted to send an army, but Danny had convinced him that a smaller force would be more effective. Prince has survived in hiding for 50 years, Danny had argued. He will see a large force coming from miles away. A small team can move quietly and strike before he knows we are there. The general had reluctantly agreed. Now, as they approached the temple, Danny wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The building was larger than expected, with multiple levels carved into the mountain itself. There could be dozens of guards inside, maybe hundreds. His small team might be walking into a trap. Director spoke through the communication device in Danny's ear. The Coalition intelligence officer had been monitoring unusual activity on Prime for months, never understanding what he was seeing until now. Thermal scans show approximately 30 life signs inside the temple, reported. Most are concentrated in the lower levels. One signature is isolated in what appears to be a command center near the top. That will be, Danny said. Likely, be careful, Cole. This man has been planning his mother's death for half a century. He will not surrender easily. Danny signaled for the team to halt. They crouched behind a ridge of frozen rock, studying the temple entrance below. 2 guards at the main door, whispered. Standard patrol pattern rotating every 10 minutes. Danny nodded. We wait for the rotation, then move fast. No weapons until we are inside. I want to reach before he knows we are here. And if that is impossible, asked Sergeant, the soldier commanding the alien troops. Then we fight, but try to take prisoners if you can. They may have information we need. The minutes passed slowly. Danny watched the guards complete their patrol and disappear inside the temple. The moment the doors closed, he moved. The team crossed the open ground in seconds. their footsteps muffled by the fresh snow. Danny reached the temple doors first, pressing himself against the cold stone while worked on the ancient lock. It clicked open with surprising ease. 50 years and they never upgraded the security, muttered. They thought nobody knew this place existed, Danny replied. Arrogance makes people careless. They slipped inside. The temple interior was warmer than expected, heated by some geothermal system built into the mountain itself. Corridors stretched in multiple directions, lit by the same floating crystals used in the royal palace. Danny consulted the thermal scan on his device and pointed toward a stairway leading up. The team moved quietly through the ancient halls. They encountered 3 guards along the way, all of them neutralized quickly and silently by the soldiers. Danny had expected resistance, but the temple seemed almost empty. Something felt wrong. They reached the command center without further incident. A large metal door blocked their path, sealed with a complex locking mechanism. Examined it briefly, then shook her head. I cannot bypass this. The encryption is too advanced. Danny stepped forward and knocked on the door. Silence. Then a voice spoke through a hidden speaker, smooth and cultured and entirely calm. I wondered how long it would take you to find me. I expected soldiers, not a human guard playing detective. My mother always did appreciate underdogs. Prince, Danny said, your mother wants to speak with you. Laughter echoed through the corridor. I'm sure she does. She has much to say, I imagine. Accusations, pleas, perhaps even apologies if she is truly desperate, but I have nothing to say to her. She is dying, you are killing her. Does that mean nothing to you? The door slid open. Prince stood in the chamber beyond, surrounded by screens displaying data from across the planet. He was tall even by standards, his exoskeleton marked with scars and faded royal colors. His compound eyes burned with cold intelligence and old hatred. It means everything to me, said. I have waited 50 years for this moment. 50 years of planning, hiding, building my network piece by piece, and now, at last, the immortal sovereign falls. Danny stepped into the chamber, keeping his hands visible. The soldiers fanned out behind him, weapons raised. Why? Danny asked. What could possibly justify killing your own mother? Mandibles clicked with bitter amusement. You would not understand, human. Your species barely comprehends politics beyond tribal warfare. The Empire has stagnated we cling to ancient traditions while the galaxy evolves around us. I tried to change things peacefully. I proposed reforms, alliances, progress, and my mother responded by declaring me a traitor and sending me to die in exile. So this is revenge. This is necessity, gestured at the screens around him. The Empire is dying, human, slowly, invisibly, but inevitably. Our population declines. Our technology falls behind. Our influence shrinks with each passing century. I could have saved us. Instead, I was silenced. Now I will force the change that should have happened 50 years ago. Danny studied the prince carefully. Behind the anger and hatred, he saw something else. Pain, loss, the desperate loneliness of a man who had been cast out by everyone he loved. Your mother regrets what she did, Danny said quietly. She told me herself. She was afraid and fear made her cruel. She wants the chance to tell you that. For a moment something flickered in his compound eyes, something almost like hope. Then it vanished, replaced by cold determination. It is too late for words. The damage is done and more damage will follow, pressed a control on his wrist device. Did you think my mother was the only target? I have poisoned the pheromone supply for the entire royal bloodline. Within days, every potential heir will be dead. The succession will collapse. The empire will fall into chaos, and from that chaos I will rise. Danny felt his blood run cold. You would destroy your entire family. I would save my people, even if they hate me for it, even if history remembers me as a monster. Drew himself up to his full height. That is the difference between us, human. I am willing to sacrifice everything for what I believe. Are you? Danny thought about the dying queen. He thought about her final request, her desperate hope that her son could still be reached. I am willing to try, Danny said. Your mother asked me to bring you to her, not for punishment, just to talk. One conversation before the end. Is that really too much to ask? Stared at him for a long moment. His hand hovered over the control device that could summon guards or trigger alarms, or do a dozen other things Danny could not predict. You are either very brave or very stupid, said finally. Probably both, Danny admitted. The prince almost smiled. Then he pressed the button. Alarms began to wail throughout the temple. The alien queen collapsed without warning. A human guard revealed the truth. Part 5. The battle that followed was brutal and brief. Prince guards flooded into the corridors, outnumbering Danny's team nearly 3-1. The ancient temple walls echoed with the sounds of weapons fire and clashing bodies. Danny fought with desperate efficiency. He was not the strongest or fastest fighter in the room, but he had survived a dozen combat zones across the galaxy. He knew how to move, when to strike, and where to find cover. Stayed close to his back, her smaller frame weaving between attacks as she disabled the temple's communication array. That should stop him from triggering anything remotely, she shouted over the chaos. Sergeant and his soldiers held the corridor entrance, their professional training obvious in every movement. They fought without fear, without hesitation, their loyalty to the crown stronger than any threat could offer. But they were still outnumbered. Danny saw 2 of the soldiers fall, then a third. The enemy guards pushed forward, their numbers wearing down the defenders with relentless pressure. "We need to end this," Danny called to, "Cover me." He did not wait for a response. Danny pushed through the chaos toward the command center, toward. The prince had retreated behind his screens, watching the battle with clinical detachment. He seemed unsurprised when Danny appeared in front of him. "You should have brought more soldiers," observed. "You should have locked your door," Danny replied. They faced each other across the command console. Was taller, stronger, faster. He had been trained in combat since childhood. Danny was a human medic who had learned to fight out of necessity rather than desire. "This is pointless," said. "Even if you defeat me here, my plan continues. The poison is already in place. The heirs are already dying. Nothing you do changes that." "Then give me the antidote." "Why would I do that?" Danny took a step closer. "Because your mother asked me to bring you to her. Because she wants to apologize before she dies. Because somewhere inside you, there is still a prince who loved his mother enough to spend 50 years waiting for a chance to see her again." Exoskeleton flickered with colors Danny had learned to recognize as emotional distress. The prince's hands trembled slightly. "You know nothing about me," whispered. "I read your exile records," Danny said. "All of them. You were not always like this. You were a reformer and idealist. You believed the empire could be better. You believed in hope. Hope was beaten out of me decades ago." "Then why are you still alive?" Danny pressed forward, close enough now to touch. 50 years in hiding, 50 years of planning. If you truly believed hope was dead, you would have given up long ago. You kept going because some part of you still believes things can change. Stared at him. For a moment the hatred in his compound eyes wavered. Something softer appeared beneath it, something fragile and wounded. "She sent me away," said, his voice cracking. "Her own son. She declared me a traitor and sent me to die in the frozen wastes. Do you understand what that feels like? To be rejected by the one person who should have loved you unconditionally." "No," Danny admitted. "I cannot imagine that pain, but I know what your mother feels now. She is dying and her greatest regret is losing you. She wants the chance to say she was wrong. Is that not worth hearing?" The battle sounds faded, and the remaining soldiers had secured the corridor. Enemy guards lay defeated throughout the temple. The fight was over. Looked around at the destruction his plans had caused. 50 years of work, unraveled in a single night. His compound eyes dimmed with exhaustion and grief. "If I surrender, they will execute me." "Maybe," Danny said. "Or maybe you will spend the rest of your life in prison. Or maybe something else happens that neither of us can predict. But right now, in this moment, you have a choice. Come with me and see your mother one last time. Or stay here and die alone in this frozen ruin." Was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, he reached into a compartment on his belt and a small vial of glowing liquid. "The antidote," he said. "It will neutralize the poison throughout the royal bloodline. The heirs will live." Danny took the vial carefully. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet," extended his wrists for binding. "Take me to my mother." The journey back to the capital took several hours. Danny sat beside in the transport vessel, neither of them speaking. The prince stared out the window at the mountains falling away below, his expression unreadable. They arrived at the palace as dawn broke over the city. Commander met them at the landing platform, her face grim. She did not look at, she looked at Danny. "The sovereign's condition has worsened," said. "There is very little time." They rushed through the palace corridors. Servants and guards stopped to stare as the exiled prince passed by, their reactions ranging from shock to fury to something that might have been hope. Nobody tried to stop them. The sovereign's chamber was quiet when they entered. The dying queen lay motionless on her bed, her breathing shallow, her exoskeleton almost colorless. She seemed smaller than before, diminished by the poison slowly destroying her from within. Danny stepped back. This moment was not his. Approached his mother's bed slowly. His hands shook. His mandibles clicked with suppressed emotion. He knelt beside her, reaching out to touch her face with trembling fingers. "Mother," he whispered. The sovereign's compound eyes opened. They were dim, nearly extinguished, but they focused on her son with perfect clarity. Her voice was barely audible. "My son, you came." "I came." "I am sorry." Tears leaked from her compound eyes, running down her faded exoskeleton. "I was wrong. I was afraid and I hurt you. I should have listened. I should have trusted you. I should have been a better mother." His composure shattered. He collapsed forward, pressing his face against his mother's hand, his body shaking with sobs that had been held inside for 50 years. "I am sorry too," he choked out. "I did terrible things. I became something monstrous. I wanted to hurt you because you hurt me first. I am so sorry." The sovereign's hand moved weakly, stroking her son's head. "I forgive you. I forgave you the moment you left. I just never had the chance to tell you." They stayed like that for a long time, mother and son reunited at the end of everything. Danny watched from the doorway, feeling like an intruder but unable to look away. Finally, the sovereign's eyes turned to him. "Thank you," she whispered. "You gave us this moment I will never forget." "It was nothing," Danny said. "It was everything." The sovereign died 3 days later, surrounded by her family, her hand clasped in her son's. Prince was not executed. Instead, at General's recommendation, he was allowed to live under house arrest, his vast knowledge used to finally implement the reforms he had dreamed of 50 years ago. It was not freedom, but it was something close to redemption. Commander offered Danny a position in the Royal Guard, the first human ever granted such an honor. He declined. "I am just a medic who got lost on the way to somewhere else," he told her. "This was never supposed to be my story." Before leaving Prime, Danny visited the sovereign's tomb. General found him there, standing alone in the silent chamber. "What did she say to her son at the end?" asked. "I do not know," Danny admitted, "but I think she forgave him. That is what mothers do." Was waiting at the transport when Danny arrived. She smiled when she saw him. "Ready to go back to being ignored and underestimated?" Danny smiled back. "It is exactly how I like it." The Empire would endure for another 1,000 years. Deep in the Coalition archives, a brief footnote mentioned that a human guard had been present during the succession crisis. His name was misspelled, and nobody ever corrected it. Danny Cole did not mind. He had never done any of it for recognition. He had done it because someone was dying and he could not look away. That was just what humans did.